Welcome to the Historical Interface Museum. You have selected
Britain, 1750 to 1900. Expansion, trade, and industry.
all evidence loaded and ready for investigation.
Cue those options, Curator.
My pleasure, Melanie.
Factory life selected.
Question: how did the coming of the factories affect families?
AT3, cross-check all evidence.
I suggest the reliability of the evidence is always questioned before conclusions are made.
All right. Reform the gallery and load texts.
Plenty of them. All the people that visited factories, travel writers, novelists, parliamentary commissioners.
Why was so much... Sorry. Why so much fuss about factories?
They were new, exciting, sensational.
Give us a text, then.
Text to Visor.
The modern miracles, my friend, are to me the machines here, and the buildings that house them called factories. Such a block is 8 or 9 stories high, sometimes has 40 windows along its front, and is 4 windows deep. A number of such blocks stand in very high positions and dominate the neighborhood.
What an extraordinary spectacle. Huge factories, each consisting of numerous buildings, sometimes bound together by one surrounding wall.
What was it like to work in a factory?
Opinions differ.
In what way?
Text to Visor.
In the cotton spinning mills, thousands of miserable creatures are kept 14 hours a day, summer and winter, in a heat of 80 to 84 degrees. Observe that these poor creatures have not a breath of fresh air to come between them and infection. The door of the place where they work is locked, and they are not allowed to send for water to drink. And the notorious fact is that once healthy men are made old and past labor, decrepit and deformed at 30 years of age.
You appear shocked.
Of course I'm shocked. Weren't people at the time?
Some were, some weren't.
How could anyone think they were good places to work?
Cobbett was a radical. He believed factory workers were badly treated. Many felt he was over-emotional and not at all accurate on what factories were really like.
All right. Give me someone who had a different view.
Reconstruction replay. Text change viewpoint.
So much nonsense has been written about the deformities and diseases of the factory people that some of my readers may not believe me when I say I have never seen so many pleasing faces and handsome figures as I saw in Mr. Ashton's weaving galleries. The light labor of the women tending the looms gives them a graceful appearance.
Neither of these men actually worked in a factory, did they?
No.
So what was it like for those who did?
Conditions in the factories were controversial. There was a lot of debate at the time, and since, on what they were like. Were families better or worse off by going to work in one?
All right. Give me a family.
Gallery reform. Limited evidence.
There must be more than this. I mean, if factories were such a big deal.
The very people that were most affected by factories, the people that you'd most want to select, working-class families, were those least likely to write about their day-to-day life.
All right. Give me a reconstruction. I'll take him.
Animate actor.
We used to gather taters before we come here. And when taters were in soil, I'd do a bit of walling, willow weaving, making fences. And the wife made baskets, and kids helped her. Whittling cane, warping willow, Yeah, our cottage drive. We come to the factory, must be 5 years back now. But I come because it's regular work, I started here shifting bales, and now I'm in mule sheds, spinning mules. And the family still work for me. Wife's on spindles and kids keep machines clean. Yeah, we're a mule gang. Paid once a fortnight, family wage, in me pocket. Mind you, I miss the freedom. See, back then, when you're your own boss, you work when you like. Monday were a drink day. And then Tuesday, ate like a vat full of tar. Friday come and you work all night to catch up. Now you stop for nout. It's clock, clock, clock.
What's he on about?
Never before had time been so important. Machines don't need to eat, drink, or sleep. They run night and day. People weren't used to working in this way, so the factory owners were forced to impose all kinds of discipline.
Reanimate.
Fine you for leaving a window open. Fine you for going further than roving room when fetching. Fine you for whistling. Oh, aye, down it goes in bait book. Fine you if you're 5 minutes past bell in the morning. And sometimes if you miss bell, I'll lock you out till breakfast and you lose a quarter day. Bell's 5:30 in the morning. Breakfast. Machines don't stop. Take it as you can. Bite on the run. Sometimes you can't eat it for it being so covered in dust.
I want to see for myself.
Of course.
Probe selected. Text to visor.
On entering, we were nearly suffocated with the heat and a most intolerable stench. The room was exceedingly low and crowded with workmen, and from the small number of windows, we cannot conceive it possible for them to have sufficient air to enjoy good health.
Watch out!
Oh, that was close.
These looms are powered by steam. If you get in the way, they won't stop.
So they're dangerous.
Not if you know what you're doing.
Another text.
One lad was kneeling down, fettling the machines. A strap caught him about his ankles and carried him round the wheel and dashed his brains out on the floor.
Gross.
There is no available data on the frequency of industrial accidents, but it is true the machines had no safety guards.
What's that?
Cotton fiber, a real health hazard.
I've been a great many years in the dressing room. There are fans in it, but there's a good deal of dust in taking out the coarse cotton. I can't breathe sometimes for coughing, and it's especially bad at night. And the work is so hard. I was quite strong when I came here, but when I pulled the baskets, which are full of weights, I pulled my shoulders out of place and my ribs have grown over it. I am considerably deformed.
Conditions probe. Disengage.
I'll have another actor.
We all link up. When Knocker Upper bangs on shutters and you force yourself into code, whole gang's there, whole ruck, and we giggling much as grumbling. My five's all old enough to work. They were me and the dad, we keep an eye. Yesterday, young Willem falls asleep, but his hands keep moving. 2 minutes after Billy had stopped, he's there piecening, going through motions, fast asleep. Made me laugh. Scrawny kid. Just turned 7. You not think it.
That's far too young to be at work.
Gallery reform. Child labor.
Child labor was one of the most hotly debated topics of the time. Both those for and against used propaganda to get...
What do you mean, propaganda?
Getting people on your side by exaggerating the facts that suit your cause.
Such as?
Player rotate to active screen.
This illustration of mule spinners appeared in a book by Edward Baines. He admired the changes that were taking place in the cotton industry and was keen to stress that the factories were clean, pleasant places to work.
Contrast. Painting through.
What's this then?
This one was done same time, same place, but to illustrate a novel by Frances Trollope. She wanted to show the factories as terrible, evil places.
The kids look awful. Their clothes are all torn.
Same image, different message. That's propaganda.
What's this?
It's obvious, isn't it?
A memoir of Robert Blincoe, an orphan boy sent from the workhouse of St. Pancras, London at 7 years of age to endure the horrors of a cotton mill. 7 years old.
Many orphans and children lived in workhouses, and the parish overseers saved money by handing them over to the factories. They became pauper apprentices.
Text to visor.
It was in the gloomy month of November when Robert Blincoe and the other pauper apprentices arrived at Lytton Mill. Soon after 4 in the morning, the apprentices were summoned to work by a ringing bell. They were called so early and worked so late that little attention was paid to their personal cleanliness. Their clothes were in a filthy and ragged condition, and their bodies literally covered with wheals and contusions, their heads infested with vermin. Blinko, in common with his fellow sufferers, often dropped down at the frames, and was so weary when at last he left work, he gave a stronger boy part of his supper so he could lean on him on his way back to the apprentice house.
So if this is propaganda, how much is true?
From other evidence available, there seems little doubt that the apprentices at Lytton Mill suffered from long hours, had a monotonous diet, and crowded living conditions. No evidence available on inadequate clothing or filthy accommodation.
I bet a child from the time would have hated it.
I'm afraid it's not that simple.
Animate actor.
I remember when I was gathering taters. Before we come here, this suits me much better. We have very good masters and very good overlookers. The work ties me standing a little now and then, but not half as much. No, not even a quarter as much as I used to be getting in taters. This is a good deal best.
She would say that, wouldn't she?
What do you mean?
I bet you wrote what she said.
Her words were based on the evidence of William Munton, aged 10. There was nothing new about children working. 4-year-olds worked on farms, scaring birds off the fields, and for factory work they were easy to train, and being small could move between and under machines.
But surely parents wouldn't have wanted their children to work.
It's very hard for outsiders, like historians, to understand the feelings and emotions between members of a family.
Actor Loop, self-engaged.
Children working. It's good they earn the keep. Not saying that.
I know, but it's cheapening.
Kids are on 3, 4 shilling. Women are on 7, 8, 9.
Yeah, men on 15.
Stands to reason they'll hire more kids. We're thinking...
What we want's 10 hours. A decent shift. Now, kids are a cause. A flag to wave. Get their shifts written down. Made law. Tablets of stone. Factories will have to follow. We'll have to follow. We'll all have to work same shifts.
10 hours. They say it's with Parliament now. Now then.
What's Parliament got to do with it?
The 10 hours movement put pressure on Parliament to cut the hours children worked.
Why did Parliament have to be pressured?
Many members of government were factory owners themselves, or from the same class as factory owners, and believed that reforming conditions would lead to a damaging fall in profits and trade.
Reconstruction to Visor.
It is no business of Parliament to interfere or try and control the manufacturing process. Shorter working hours will mean a loss of profit, and if you cut their hours, you'll cut their pay.
What's this from?
It's an accurate television reconstruction of evidence given at the 1832 Parliamentary Select Committee on Factory Conditions.
At last, something I can trust.
Tell me, boy, where do you live?
26 Duke Street, Leeds, sir.
Do you work at the mills?
Yes, sir. I'm a bobbin duffer.
At what age did you begin to work in them?
Oh, we're nearly 8 years, I think.
How many hours a day do you work?
From 6 o'clock in the morning until 7 o'clock at night.
Are you beaten at your work?
Yes, sir. If we look off our work or speak to one another, they beat us.
If you don't go as fast as the machine, will you be beaten?
Yes, sir. They're screaming among the boys and girls every time of the day. They make black and blue marks on our shoulders.
Then there's continual beating of one child or another going on.
Yes.
Did this really go on a lot?
Input data to Visor.
When she was a child, too little to put on her own clothes, the overlooker used to beat her till she screamed.
The girls sometimes get a clout. The mothers often complain about this. The boys were beat so that they fell onto the floor in the course of the beating with a rope with 4 tails called a cat. I've seen the boys black and blue and crying for mercy.
Why didn't you give me this evidence before? It proves I'm right about kids working in factories.
Caution.
I'm afraid it was the committee was rigged. No evidence was given under oath, and witnesses were coached to give the right answer.
Oh no, here we go again. You can't trust anything. I want out.
Do not disengage. Do not disengage. Do not disengage.
You have enough evidence to make a conclusion.
Because I can't trust it.
Some evidence is more reliable than others. The Royal Commission can't be ignored. It met 43 times and examined 89 witnesses.
I'll only stay if the children's hours were cut.
The 1833 Factory Act.
No child under 9 to work. 9 to 13, no more than 8 hours a day. 13 to 18, no more than 12 hours a day. Factory inspectors appointed to enforce the act.
But the changes did nothing to limit the hours of adult workers.
Animate actors.
Willem stays home now till he's 9. I bribed Doctor to say he's 9, but he don't look 9. 4 shilling a week it's cost us, and he's kicking his heels idle in the street.
Point was, kids get their hours cut, our hours follow. Decent shifts.
Now, kids work 8 hours, but men must match 2 kids' shifts. That's 16 hours, busting a gut and no complaint. Yet and I come home and there's no food.
It's 'cause I work. I've always worked.
Yeah, you've always worked to me. And my daughter not knowing nothing about sewing or keeping a thrifty house.
Thrifty? You squander it most part and you say thrifty.
I don't want my wife working.
Why is he so worried about his wife working?
He wasn't alone. After 1833, mills began to employ more and more women. In 1839, there were nearly 300,000 mill hands, and nearly 60% were women.
So?
Text to visor.
With everyone out at work, there's no one spare to make the home cheerful and inviting. No clean and tidy wife appears to welcome her husband. No smiling and affectionate mother to welcome her children. On the contrary, all arrive home equally tired. And working women are almost entirely ignorant of household duties. The industrious working man lives in misery and debt from the conduct of an ignorant gin-drinking woman called his wife.
Were they all this sexist?
It was the first time women had worked independently, away from the control of their father or husband. Many people at the time found this shocking and were frightened that if men couldn't discipline their wives and children, society would break down.
That's just stupid.
That's your view.
But...
And some people from the time would have agreed with you.
One of the greatest advantages in the rise of the textile industry is the way it's improved the condition of women. All they lack is a little education. I believe it's in the community's interest for every young woman to earn her own money and be independent, so she is not driven into an early marriage by the necessity of seeking a home.
Question: how did the coming of the factories affect families?